Hey everybody, Justin Worden. I am sitting down with Greg Vance as he runs his campaign for the SMTA president. Greg, how are you?
Doing great, Justin. How are you today?
Hey man, I'm doing wonderful. I had the opportunity to interview your counterpart, and now it is your turn to sit on the hot seat, answer some of the tough questions, and let's see how you can make the SMTA better. So we're gonna kick right into it. You have a very well-known name in the SMTA, so I'm not going to spend too much time on your resume. I want to focus more
Mhm.
on the leadership qualities that you possess and what you're going to bring as a potential president of the SMTA. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, first question here. What's your golf handicap?
My golf game is not very good. I enjoy playing golf, but my handicap is as high as it can be. So people are giving me strokes quite often.
Well,
But
that's
I enjoy getting out on the links and swinging the club. Every once in a while, I do connect with the ball as well.
yeah, exactly. I've had the opportunity of playing golf with you at the Ohio SMTA golf event a few years ago, actually, and that's just a little presidential debate humor to kick things off.
Yeah, we
But
missed you this year. We missed you. We had a
yes,
great event back in
yeah.
June. Beautiful day.
Yeah, it's always a wonderful course. It's a great time, great people. But going back to the SMTA, one of the things that may be an issue that is coming up is the marquee sponsorship. The SMTA has always had a wonderful relationship with the main sponsors that really come in and fund a lot of the big activities that the SMTA puts on. What are your thoughts on making sure that those sponsors are not only getting what they're paying for, but you're not exhausting their wallets?
Yeah. Um, the sponsorships obviously are available at multiple different levels, and those marquee sponsors do change depending on where the event is located. To be honest with you, when the SMTA International went to uh, Minnesota, Minneapolis, that is, the key sponsors changed. So it's very regional based upon their experience in that region. Um, but beyond that, we're constantly reaching out and expanding those opportunities as the industry goes through different cycles. So we don't tap one out more than another. But the other thing with that is providing the visibility, the value for those sponsors to be engaged with our events, and that's what we focus on. And I think that's what's important to focus on is how can we help them provide value, provide more visibility, expand their market through our events.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And actually, one thing I wanted to bring up. So, Greg, you mentioned the location of SMTAI and moving from Minneapolis back to Chicago. There's a lot of optimism that's going to bring a lot of new foot traffic back to the show. Now, there also are some people that are very hesitant that with the post-COVID years and the younger generation coming in, less people are more inclined to actually attend trade shows. What do you think that impact will be over the next year?
So, good question. So SMTA International moving from Minneapolis back to Chicago, I think itself is going to be a boost. The Chicagoland area, its accessibility is easier for people to get in and out of. And that removes one of the barriers or obstacles that we got feedback from with Minneapolis, as it was too many connecting flights to get into. Additionally, uh, with Chicago, the geographic area around it, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Minneapolis for that, Kentucky even, it's easier for people to drive to that central location. So I think going back to Chicago is going to be a good boost. The last 4 years, let's be honest, have been difficult coming with the pandemic and everything. And coming out of that, I think that the shows are going to continue to grow and be successful. But we've dealt with the COVID and post-pandemic, and we're recovering from that. We do have the broader economic challenges with the economy, which has been strong, but there's signs. So we're going to just continue to work through that and put on a good show, attract people, promote it, and I'm confident it'll be successful. We have a good lineup so far this year.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've seen the vendor list. We exhibit every year. We're going after a big booth. We're very excited that it's back in Chicago. We believe we're going to start pulling in more of that international crowd that we're used to seeing in the past. But let's take it down to the local chapter. I'm in a position where I get to travel to Mexico and go to some of their local trade shows. I get to travel all over the United States and see a lot of the local trade shows. And there's an issue in the United States where there's the marquee locations, and I'm not going to pinpoint any of them, but we know which ones are just doing a really, really good job. I'm here trying to rebuild the Austin chapter into another prominent local chapter. But what do you think really causes the discrepancy between some of these chapters where you may get 100 vendors and 100 attendees and you may not talk to anyone?
So when we get down to the chapter expos, obviously geographical region is one factor that take into account, and the proximity for customers to come in and take part. The other element with the chapter expos is it's run by the chapter. Those events are put together with collaboration from SMTA. Therefore, you get a bit more variation. But how we make expos successful is we have to build a solid program. And that's what makes chapters successful, is building a solid program where they provide and put on events that provide meaningful information for people to want to attend and to pull and to learn. So it's important for the chapters to continue to seek out what needs their regions have and invite those speakers in to help their events be successful.
Yeah, speakers are one of those things that I notice as we get closer to like the deadline of the events. There seems to be like a rush at the end every time, like, hey, we need more speakers, we need more technical papers. And maybe this is a generational thing with the age of, the younger generation coming up, but it appears that it's becoming more and more difficult to get someone to want to give a technical presentation, but also follow up with a paper. And that maybe that's a hurdle that's being created because a lot of us are writers, and maybe some of them are using ghostwriters. But do you see that there's a challenge that we can move around by maybe getting away from the technical papers and more focusing on the presentation, or maybe even video conversations like you and I are having?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for a couple of things, SMTA International is our annual technical conference that requires a paper be written and submitted along with the presentation. I don't anticipate that changing for the bulk of the format. With that, again, going back to the challenges we had with the pandemic, soliciting speakers has been a challenge. This year in particular, SMTA set the schedule for the event, for the abstracts and such to be turned in, and they've set to that. And I know that they're in the process right now of putting the program together with the 90 plus, I believe, abstracts that have been submitted. So this is a year where they've said we're going to stick to our timeline and work with the content, quality presentations versus quantity of presentations. And I think that's going to serve us well this year.
Yeah,
With that being said, though, we've provided alternative means of people to collaborate and share information without having to write papers. Even at SMTA International, we've had forums per se. I forget what they called them. I participated with them in the past where people came together and just shared discoveries that they've made without having to write a paper. And then there's the other events throughout the year that don't require a white paper. We have two events, PanPac and SMTA International. Those two events require papers. The other ones do not. So those are avenues for individuals to develop their material. But it's a challenge.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is, I think, a great topic for you, because locally in your specific area, you guys do a lot with like Lorraine Community College. We've seen that posted all over social media, and they've invested a lot of resources into that specific build out. And sometimes when I look at the technical landscape of what's being presented, I sometimes wonder, is it a little too niche, too specific for bringing in that younger generation? With you at the head of the SMTA, do you see the option of maybe investing in some personal development or business development or career development type presentations to really help groom this younger generation that's coming in and really struggling to find the information?
Yeah. Well, I would say the program last year, they specifically had a track on day one that focused on more of the 101 level information. Chris Shea did a presentation on printing basics and pitfalls to avoid with that. I don't recall what there were three presentations. So I think that's an example where we've attempted to do that. We also have the passport program, which encourages attendees of all ages, because not just we don't have just young individuals coming into the industry; they come in at all ages to go around and talk and have conversations to start to build their acumen and their knowledge in the industry.
So one crisis that's just impacting the industry as a whole, and probably all manufacturing, is just there's just not enough people to hire, right? And whether it's at Rockwell or here in Austin, all the different customers that I go and visit, the first thing they say is, "Do you have some engineers for me?" And what we're starting to find out is, yes, there are people that are realizing this is a very good career and they're leaving their existing industry and coming over. I'm a transplant like that myself. But a lot of people are finding that it's actually easier to go right to the high schools, the technical colleges, and hire a very green student and almost train them on the job. Where do you think the SMTA can really improve the job search function of the website and what they're offering?
Okay. Well, before we get to that, I'd like to touch on workforce development because I think that's critical. It's a critical need in our industry. And that is an area that I've, through our collaboration with Lorraine Community College, have invested a lot of time. And you mentioned, and I think that I want to emphasize that I think it's important that we, as an industry, as an association, um, as chapters, interact and engage with our community colleges, our uh, career centers to start to promote specific coursework in the field of electronics manufacturing, highlighting the IPC 610 and the other IPC certifications for hand solder skills and things of that nature, as well as general workforce skills that are needed to develop operators, rework, troubleshooters, engineers, all the way up. So I think that's very important, and we need to do that. Then specifically, going back to how do we connect people that are looking for work or what opportunities are in our industry. I know that we've been putting effort into the SMTA website to improve that process. There's for members and non-members, there's some visibility to a certain amount of information, a limited quantity, without logging in, so that helps promote that visibility. But that's another thing as part of our 5-year plan that we embarked on with the SMTA back in 2022. Workforce development and promoting those opportunities is one of the key areas to improve.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And every company, workforce development is what they need. So if you really want to retain those sponsors and really attract some of those bigger companies to really invest in the SMTA, if you can get them employers, they're going to come after you and they're going to
Yes.
help out. So, but that brings up another point about sharing of knowledge. And I know this is something I think you and I have talked about this in videos in the past, and everyone talks about it. There's a weird transition happening. I'm on the younger side, but I'm still almost 40. So there's people coming in the industry that are 17, 18 years younger than me. And it seems like there's still some resistance to passing that knowledge down from the people that have retained this for the last 20, 30, 40 years, and really sharing that knowledge and embracing the fact that if we don't pass this on to the younger generation, some of this information is going to go away.
Yes. Yes. So how do we promote that is your question. Well, collaboration and networking is a cornerstone of what the SMTA does. So engaging with people in situations that encourages people to get to know one another, networking events, socials, as well as our technical meetings and conferences provide those opportunities for people to engage and get comfortable. I find personally, and from my personal experience in the industry, is it takes interest on those to want to learn. And I have never had any problems finding individuals willing to share their insights and knowledge, and not necessarily provide the answer, because the answer at any given company could be different because of what they're doing, the types of products and challenges they have, chemistries that they're using, but they provide enough information that they can start to discover and experiment to solve those problems in their own facilities.
Well, one thing I think that is causing it to appear to be a bigger problem than it is just the generational gap that we have. The way the information was given in the past is with the technical papers, going online. I mean, the SMTA website is just so much information. It's a Rolodex of pretty much every issue you could face on the floor. But it seems like with the younger generation coming in, that's not how they want to retain that information. So we have this constant push and pull of how do we deliver the information in a way that they want to receive it. And through social media and video, it appears that that's starting to bridge that gap. So, if you were to become the SMTA president, do you think you would push more towards a little bit more video education, webinars, or do you still think the technical papers would be the way to go?
Oh, no, I think we need to do all of the above. And again, highlighting when March of 2020 hit, our predominant mechanism for engaging as chapters and as an association was all face-to-face. It was, I mean, the majority of it was face-to-face, very little use of virtual meetings. And that forced us to pivot as an association to continue to engage the membership, both locally and at the international level. We were forced to go virtual and forced to do digital content, and I think it's exploded. And if you look at our calendar today, I haven't counted it, but I would venture to say that 60-70% of the content that's coming across is in a digital format today.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain conferences, we don't do it exclusively all the time, but we're starting to record presentations and make those available to members and package them together for members to utilize on different topics. So I think digital content is going to continue to take a major role in our engagement between members.
So this year the SMTA turns 40. It's been a great 40 years, and it's been going under great leadership. I mean, the memberships are continuing to grow, but fortunately or unfortunately, there are term limits, and that's why we're having this conversation. So it's not lack of the previous president doing a poor job or anything like that. It's just the fact that we have a term limit and it's time to elect a new president. Mm-hmm. So you have thrown your hat in the ring, and I think it's a very good opportunity for you to take the SMTA in another direction. If you were to kind of pinpoint that direction, what would you say?
Well, as we discussed today, access to content is a real challenge, and connecting with it. We have an extensive knowledge base today. Searching it, locating things, it can be a challenge. So I think that's an area that we're going to continue to look at what technology is available out there to help us do that better. We've considered indexing to have greater visibility on the web. There's challenges that come with that as well. So we'll continue to look at that. Beyond that, we need to continue to develop as an international organization. You had commented about your engagement down in Mexico. Mexico has just exploded. There's a lot of industry moving into Mexico, growing in Mexico, and the Mexican SMTA chapters really, my term on the board was 2018 through 2024. And just to see that exponential growth where we started in Guadalajara with one chapter and how that's just blossomed out to all the other locations. I think there's 5 or 6 now, right? So just a wonderful example of how SMTA has provided a network for people to connect and a community to come together within Mexico. SMTA Europe is growing and transitioning. They have very successful events. We need to continue to look at Southeast Asia, India, and those other developing economies, and how we can be a part of that, and bringing and expanding our family to bring those communities into it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes, we sit and we have these conversations and we forget that we are an international organization, and it is so much more than just the United States. Canada is a growing chapter. Mexico is on a trajectory unlike anywhere else. And, one question I always have is when I go to those shows and I look at, those are all basic tabletop shows, just like I would go to at your Ohio Valley chapter. But the most basic tabletop at a Mexico show is just like this glorified booth as opposed to what we see here. So a question of my own, not really so much for this interview, but do you think sometimes we might oversaturate with the local chapters in the United States? Are there too many possibly?
Well, I would say that the chapter structures in too many chapters. I don't think so. I don't think that we have too many. I think looking at yourself at the great state of Texas, how the chapters work together to help their events be successful, I think help alleviate that saturation. I know here in Ohio, we started partnering with Michigan, and the feedback from suppliers was, this worked out really well for me. I could come in, I could do the Michigan show, I could do the Ohio show. So I think we're starting to leverage those opportunities and share those with chapters where that makes sense. I know Florida does the same thing. Beyond that, we launched last year I believe it's called the alliance structure, where we've always been, particularly in the U.S., very rigid at what a chapter consisted of and what they needed to do. And the fact of the matter is some regions struggled to do that. So we created the alliance structure that provided the networking opportunities, alleviated some of the expectations that we as an organization had for them, to let them cultivate and grow, and they may stay as an alliance or they may grow into a chapter. But I think those are examples where we're trying to avoid oversaturating a given region.
Now, the SMTA is obviously a membership-driven organization, so the goal is always to improve membership. We want to go after those corporate members, bring in the big companies, and make sure they're maxing out their seats. That's always been something that, we always hear, how can we help champion more people to use their seats? But one of the other things that a new person coming into the SMTA is the SMTA can appear to be very cliquey. There's been a lot of the same people at the top kind of running the organization. So with the board of directors and things moving around, how do you think we can better structure it so when not outsiders, but new people come in, specifically if maybe they're a competitor of someone that's on the board, it's a little bit more welcoming for someone new coming in that might stir things up a little bit, but they're competing with someone that's on the board of directors, so it causes a little bit of a resistance for some new people coming in.
Coming in specifically to what, Justin?
As a new member of the SMTA.
Okay. Well, the electronic manufacturing industry is a very large industry, right? And obviously, there are a number of suppliers supplying like technologies or within the same space, right? Cleaning companies, placement companies, soldering companies, that we need to, and I think we do, provide opportunities for everyone. So to be welcomed, to be part of it, it's a matter of becoming part of the community, engaging, learning, sharing. And I think that helps overcome those perceptions. Because personally, my experience, and I like to talk a lot, but I can sit down and have conversations with, in fact, Ohio Valley just recently did automated optical inspection face-to-face meeting in the Dayton area. And I think we had 5 or 6 different representatives. And it was just incredible to see the collaboration on the technology that occurred that day. So I think it's a matter of framing these engagements with people so that they're more technical focused versus, obviously, as we're engaging with people, we're establishing relationships, we're sharing opportunities of what, as a supplier, one would have to market to somebody. That's natural. But I think when we focus on the technology of learning what we do, why we do it, how we can do it better to solve problems, that helps overcome that burden and helps suppliers be successful. Because at the end of the day, that's what users need is they need solutions to help them solve their problems and to become more efficient, more profitable.
Well, that was a wonderful answer, and I think you nailed that one. That was very good. And I constantly push, and I got plenty of quotes out there talking about the SMTA and getting involved with the local chapter, right? Because if you do look at the SMTA as a whole, 20,000 plus members worldwide, it is a very big organization, and they do operate under the motto. What is it? The global chapter operating at a local level.
Local level.
Yeah, I love that. Kudos to whoever came up to that, but. It is one of those things where we really need to encourage people to really just invest in your local chapter. And through there, it opens up so many doors and opportunities for people to just really not only work their way up, but just open up so many new doors worth of information and opportunities. Not only job opportunities, but speaking opportunities that you never knew could have been offered to you. But as we wrap this up, we're going to kind of dive a little bit more into your campaign and why you decided to put your name as a presidential candidate. What really was it? Was it no one else is doing it, so I'm going to do it? Or was there something that Greg knew he wanted to get done?
Well, first of all, SMTA has been a wonderful organization to me personally. Over my 20 plus years involvement with it, the contacts that I've established, the network that I've built, that has become very close friends, has been very rewarding for me personally. I enjoyed my time serving on the board of directors in my different roles, and had that opportunity to be the interim president in 2020. when needed, and I was honored to be asked to step up and to assume that at that time too, which was very challenging. So now, out of the pandemic, I like the same opportunity to do it in where we're not dealing with the chaos of the pandemic and the ripple effects that it had on us as individuals, on our industry, and to work with the board. The board of directors provide such a diverse perspective, different parts of the industries, users, suppliers, consultants, that really helps as I give for me to grow and to learn and be more successful. Here at work. So that's what's prompted me to put my name in the hat.
Well, I think we'll end it on that. That is about as good as you can wrap it up. Get it done the right way. Greg, I think you are a wonderful candidate. I think you're one of the, well, at least two best people for the job right now. We'll see
That's
which
right.
one of you win. But as people are casting their ballot, I hope they take the time to watch this interview and just think about, who is going to take the SMTA to the next level. We're 40 years in, and we continue to grow. And Greg, I really appreciate everything you've done for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. Thanks for the time. Enjoyed talking with you.
You're very welcome.